Okay, welcome to everybody that's joined us here in council chambers, as well as those that have joined us from home. This is a regular meeting of the Poquoson City Council, and this is Monday, October 22nd. If we could all please rise, I'll lead you in the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and for the many blessings we have received in our city. As we address the issues before us this evening, we ask for a portion of your wisdom that we do what is best for the citizens that we serve. As always, we ask for your presence and your strength, that it be felt by those in our military, especially those serving in foreign lands, as well as our public safety employees in our federal government, state, and local and locality. Be with them and their families as they protect all of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we had a special presentation on the agenda this evening, but we're going to move that to next week. And we will now move straight to the audience for visitors. So if there's anybody that would like to address council on any issue that we don't have any public hearings, now is that time. As you come, just let us know your name and address.
Okay. I'm Randy Trustrail. I live at 212 Beach Road, Poquoson. All of you should have received a resolution, a copy of a resolution that would oppose offshore drilling in our area, and I urge you to put that on the agenda to discuss and decide on in November, but I urge you to pass the resolution opposing offshore drilling because offshore drilling is still not safe. Currently, there is a 14-year oil spill just continuing in the Gulf. There's 300 to 700 barrels of oil a day that's been spewing for about 12 miles off the coast of Louisiana. A platform sank in a mudslide triggered by Hurricane Ivan, and the oil continues to spill. According to federal officials, the estimated spill will continue through the next century. So oil spills are continuing. I'm concerned about my own property. I'm sure like many of you all live on the waterfront. I live on the open water. I feel certain that this would destroy my property values. So I hope you will represent me and please help protect my property values as well as yours. I think Scott Taylor, our representative, is also opposed to offshore drilling, and when asked why, he said he didn't know how he could not be opposed to offshore drilling because of so many of his constituents have spoken up against it. And there's also the issue of the Atlantic right whale, who's on the brink of extinction, and this would probably just really throw that animal over the edge and would probably become extinct. So please pass the resolution. Thank you.
Yes,
sir. So, my name is Gwyn Williams, and I live in actually in York County at 219 Old Pond Lane, which is on the Poquoson River, sort of upstream from you. I'd like to encourage you to think hard and carefully about putting this resolution on your next agenda, because I think 17 of the local authorities have actually passed this no drilling resolution. In Poquoson, you have all the watermen, you have a lot of recreation on the water, and I think that there's a huge risk of an oil spill being a disaster. From an economic point of view, I would point out, I actually think of it more economically. I put solar panels on my roof for economic reasons rather than for being green. The return on investment is huge on solar panels. Putting wind turbines out offshore is a lot easier, is cheaper, and the technology exists. And running electrical cables is a lot safer than oil pipelines coming ashore. I mean, I think that people haven't really thought about the economics at least at some of the meetings that I go to. So I encourage you to please put this on the agenda at the next meeting, think carefully about it, and hope you'll decide to pass it. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Hunt and members of the council. I'm also here to encourage you to support a resolution to oppose offshore drilling. I would asking you to join with the other 14 municipalities and the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission that you all are a member have come out in opposition to offshore drilling. Offshore drilling will threaten our national security. That's why the Department of Defense and Scott Taylor oppose offshore drilling. It jeopardizes the commercial fishing industry and, of course, the livelihood of our Poquoson watermen. It would place us at great risk if we were to have an oil spill. It'll pollute our waters and continue to impact our economy and, of course, our quality of life. So I would also like to encourage you to sign a resolution against offshore drilling. Thank you. Cheryl Ferreira, 206 Carroll Drive, Yorktown.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I have some documents for y'all to review. Can I have some? Hi, I'm Ann Creasy. I live in Norfolk, Virginia. I work for the Sierra Club Virginia chapter, and I just wanted to bring some resources for y'all to review, and I'm happy to send you electronic copies tomorrow as well. It's a copy of the City of Hampton's resolution in opposition to offshore drilling. There is also a letter from the HRPDC and a letter from military families in opposition to offshore drilling. And I also included my business card. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I hope to be working more with Poquoson in the future. I worked a lot with Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Hampton, Newport News as they passed their offshore drilling resolutions. So I hope you consider it, and feel free to give me a call or send me an email if you have any questions for anything, all things environmental. Please reach out. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if not, I'll close the public hearing and ask council for consideration of the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes of our regular session of October the 9th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we approve the minutes of October 9th. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Evie, please.
Certainly. Councilman Green,
Aye.
Councilman Hucks,
Aye.
Councilman Canella,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman,
Aye.
Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, and the work session?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes of our work session of the same evening.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we approve those also. Any questions or comments on those? If not, Evie, please.
Councilman Canella,
Aye.
Councilman Green,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Councilman Hucks,
Aye.
Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, move on to new business. And the first item under new business is an ordinance creating a regional industrial facility authority. And that's pursuant to section 15.2 6400 of the Code of Virginia. This is something that we had a work session about last meeting. And I don't know if, Randy, do you plan on doing any presentation?
We are available to answer your questions or to reintroduce it, but since we had a half an hour plus work session at your last meeting, we thought that we would respond to your questions rather than do the presentation for a second time in 3 weeks.
Very good. Okay, does anybody need a presentation or is somebody prepared with a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance creating a regional industrial facility authority pursuant to section 15.2-6400 with some Latin words I have no clue what they mean of the Code of Virginia.
Second.
You could have just asked Wayne. Anyway, with that being said, I will apologize to Mr. Dave Callis, who has come this evening to answer any of our questions. If we don't have any, that's probably because You did such a great job, and your two groups that came to present this a couple weeks ago. I think it's a great plan. I think at a high level, what it allows the city of Poquoson to do is to buy into any project that would benefit the city of Poquoson and not participate in those regional activities that wouldn't benefit us, in a nutshell. And it just seems like a wave of the future in doing economic development, and so we appreciate that. All right, with that just high-level thing, Evie, please.
Certainly. Councilman Canella.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, next item on our new business is a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an assistance to firefighters grant to replace the current self-contained breathing apparatuses.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Battalion Chief Breeden will be here to present on behalf of the fire department. You'll note that we have leadership from both the paid and volunteer fire department with us this evening. Glad to have them. Mr. Breeden, I don't want to steal your thunder, so come on up and share your good news.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Manager. Basically what we're doing is going for another grant. This time to upgrade our self-contained breathing apparatuses that we wear. Those were purchased, as you know, with a grant about 12 years ago. In that time, the technology has changed immensely. We can do things with those, with the new packs that we are unable to do with ours today. The ergonomics of the packs has increased greatly, which will help reduce fatigue, back strain, all the things that can eventually cost us money down the road. So obviously a win-win there. This grant does have a 5% match, and the volunteer fire company has graciously said that they would pick up that 5% match to aid the city. The grant is going to be in the neighborhood of $195,000. That replaces 36 of our units. They're not cheap, but like I said, the new technology, we can actually track the air reserves of every individual that's in there actively fighting fire. So if somebody's having a problem, the incident commander can monitor that from the outside. So with that, I would just please welcome to be able to move forward so I can submit this thing and get us going.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for, did you write the grant this time, or who wrote the grant? Okay, I just figured that you probably wrote the grant, because you've gotten very good at this, and we appreciate that.
I try, yeah.
Okay. So really appreciate y'all looking out as a department for what money's available and helping yourselves, but helping our citizens by providing superior service through grants like this, because these will allow rescue and things like that it would not be possible without things like this. So really appreciate it.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, thanks.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion that we proceed forward with this grant?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an assistance to firefighters grant to replace current self-contained breathing apparatuses.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we approve this resolution to authorize the grant to be submitted. Evie, please.
Certainly. Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Canella.
Aye.
Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, and as the holiday season approaches, we have a resolution here canceling the second meetings of the months of November and December. Is somebody prepared to move forward with that?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution canceling the second meetings of the months of November and December 2018.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. We cancel those meetings, and of course, if something comes up that we need a meeting, we'll set one up. Evie, please.
Certainly. Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Canella.
Aye.
Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote to 6-0.
Very good. Okay, under old business, we've been having some discussions about rental inspections. What is it that we are going to do here under old business?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Good. Unless, Mr. Green, if you'd like to do this, I'll begin. Council members will recall that in August, we had an extensive work session where we reviewed the current state enabling legislation with regard to rental inspection programs for residential dwellings. As a follow-up to that, or as part of that discussion, we talked about how the current law, the enabling legislation, if you choose to embrace it as a council, is not very flexible at all. And we discussed potential that if the city of Poquoson was interested, that we might consider a legislative fix to provide a little bit of flexibility in the way that we might engage the program. And we discussed at that time in August the concept of maybe reviewing these rental units as they became vacant, and how that wasn't specifically laid out in the code. And at the end of the August session, there was not a consensus to move forward. At the October 9th meeting, council discussed this once again in a conversation led by Supervisor Green, and there was a consensus that evening that we could work together to bring a simplified version, sort of essentially boil it to its essential element, and bring it back for discussion. So very promptly thereafter, Councilman Green and Graham Wilson and myself met the next day to walk through the idea of the smallest possible change to add the flexibility that Councilman Green was looking for. And what you'll see in the memo here, rather than an approach whereby a piece of property would be established or inspected each time it was vacant, but rather than do that, we've narrowed it to a modification only of one section of that code. That's on your first page here. The italics is the existing language, and the underlined is a proposed language change. Obviously, should you wish to go forward, the Division of Legislative Services will craft the language so it may not look exactly like this. But essentially, the change relates to initial inspection. You remember under the code, if you pass the ordinance and then you designate the rental inspection district, then there's a period of initial inspection, by which during a prescribed period of time, we would go and inspect all of the rental dwelling units within the prescribed district. What this changed with the addition of the following words, which I'll just read for the people at home, in addition to the section, no other modification, last sentence, the local government may choose to delay the initial inspection of a residential rental property until the first time the unit becomes vacant on or after the establishment of the district, unless an earlier inspection is requested by the landlord or the tenant. So no longer here is the concept that we would do an inspection every time it became vacant. We would simply time our initial inspection with vacancy unless requested by the tenant or the landlord to do otherwise, and then in every other aspect conform to the state code. So I think we've minimized the change. And Mr. Green, did I miss anything?
No, sir, I think you've covered it very well. The code already gave us the ability to say that once we inspected it and it was brought up to the code of when it was built, that we could exempt them from any further inspections for at least a period of 5 years, and I think we could even probably go further than that.
Yeah, it's a minimum.
Yeah, the minimum is 5 years. So I think it gives us the tools we're looking for.
I have a question on that. It's my understanding that what we're voting on tonight is to try to get the state to change the state code to allow us to have this authorization. We're not voting on changing the city code at this time. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's correct. This would be a matter of state code modification. Should this modification or any reasonable variant of it be ultimately approved, then and only then you would consider, well, I shouldn't say only then you would consider whether or not you wanted to adopt your own companion ordinance and designate districts,
Okay.
which you could do with or without the state change. But without the state change, the flexibility afforded in that final section, proposed modification to Section D, would not be there.
Okay.
So, great briefing, great discussion. Is there a motion to have more formal discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we move forward with requesting our state legislators to change their state code to conform to what we would like for it to read.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we basically contacted our state representatives, see if they will sponsor this bill, right, and try and move it forward with this very minor change. That's what I understand. Are we all on the same page? I see a lot of head nods up and down. Okay, so Evie, please.
Yes. Councilman Canella?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilman Hucks?
Aye.
And Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, very well. Comments of the city manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two things. One, actually three. I'm sorry if my voice is hard to listen to. I've been sick for about a week, and so I know I'm hoarse. I apologize for that. But I wanted to say that while, in response to the last item, while Mr. Green and Graham Wilson and I were able to meet real quick the next day, we very quickly also followed up with Wayne, who provided his legal work as well. I didn't even dare to ask to turn a meeting that quick on his schedule. I know how busy he is.
Thank you for that.
And also, I just wanted to thank everyone involved in the Seafood Festival. It takes a whole community to have that event, and while there are leaders within the event, there's many, many, many leaders under that giant tent. And it went very well, and Dave and his team, Debbie, and all of their volunteers are to be commended. It's easy to have a wonderful event when everything's going well, but we had severe wind events, we had 6 or 7 hours of protracted rain, and despite it all, the event was very, very good, and the fireworks were really a nice addition to have back. So that's all I have, sir.
Okay, very good. Let's see, council directives. Bud?
I'd just like to second the comments of the city manager. I think the festival went off very well, and the work of the city employees and the vendors and everyone working together really paid off. Whether or not we're standing, we can't control that, okay? And I'd like to thank all the people who came here tonight and those at home for paying attention to the city government.
Okay, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Have nothing new or additional, but I would say that in addition to the things the city manager mentioned about all the people doing this stuff, we started cleaning up and preparing, then had a hurricane, and then had to redo all that cleaning up and preparing. So it's kind of like a double whammy, and they were able to still do it, and I certainly enjoy it.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Hucks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No comment tonight.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Green.
Just to echo all the comments about the festival, it was great. I was there all 3 days, and everything went well. It's a shame the rain came Saturday, but we can't control that, and Sunday certainly made up for it. The other thing is that to remind people that this Tuesday is the mobile food pantry at the old City Hall from 10 to 1, and the Poquoson Women's Club and the Poquoson Garden Club are hosting it.
Okay. Councilman Canella.
Nothing additional this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I got a couple things. One, obviously, I need to echo the Seafood Festival. Job well done. I love seeing Friday night's crowd was intense, very crowded, a great fireworks show. Saturday, I saw a lot of Bull Islanders there. I would expect the Bull Islanders would just come right on in the rain, and they did. And then Sunday was fabulous. So So really a job well done to our city staff. And also, I want to reach out to our citizens for a second, because it does cut off traffic flow. It does make it hard to get through our city, to reach out to the surrounding communities and show them what Poquoson is all about. And I know that's inconvenient and at times maybe even frustrating, but we appreciate your patience with that, in addition to what staff always does. It does take a whole community to put that on. In response, and not really a response, but to the speakers tonight, I will say that offshore drilling has been a topic of discussion now for a couple years, actually. And the city of Poquoson is represented on the Planning District Commission. Councilman Hux represents us on that. He counseled with us, and our vote was negative towards offshore drilling. And in response to that, HRPDC, I think unanimously was opposed. In addition to that, the city of Poquoson is also represented by Hampton Roads Federal Facilities Alliance, which our Councilman Bud Southall is our representative. They also unanimous vote to oppose offshore drilling, and as well as we have written all of our congressmen. So we are well stated that we are opposed to offshore drilling as we currently understand it. Council, you'll have to advise me whether you want to add an additional resolution in the coming weeks to the agenda. But that'll, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we have gone out there and publicly been opposed to that. So without anything else, I don't have any other comments. I do think we have a closed session, and if we could have a motion to go to that closed session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we convene a closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A7 as amended to discuss a specific legal matter requiring the advice of legal counsel.
Second.
Okay, motion made and second that we go to a closed session. Evie, please.
Certainly. Councilman Hux,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman,
Aye.
Councilman Green,
Aye.
Councilman Canella,
Aye.
Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Very good. We're in closed session. We should be back shortly. Thanks.